And on that note, I gotta think of what the hell was I gonna say? I already forgot. Good Lord, this one's gonna be fun. All right, on that note, welcome everyone to the Cynical View of Wrestling. I'm Jake Starr, joined as always by that guy Wasley and Professor D. Make that with that name what you will. Wasley and I made that up without him knowing, so congrats.
I regret everything about my involvement in this podcast now.
Now, before we even start, there's an order of business that needs to be addressed. Oleg, do you have any cats on you?
No, they have been sequestered from the room, and no felines will be interrupting my musings today.
So it might be my turn this week because I've already had to kick the dogs out of the room twice. So at some point I may end up with like a dog sat on me.
Is this going to turn into a pet-friendly show before it turns into a wrestling show ever?
Next week you require a guinea pig to be on your lap there.
Well, it's been 3 weeks since we last did one of these little shindigs, and a lot's happened. We had WrestleMania, we've had the Superstar Shakeup, we've had a ring break again, and we had the greatest bump of the year by a referee. And so we kind of talked before we actually went live that we want to do kind of a little very brief mention of WrestleMania because that was what we started with. So, Oleg, your thoughts as a whole?
Well, as a whole, as somebody who watched both, the Hall of Fame live NXT TakeOver and WrestleMania, first off, for the love of God, 7 hours is way too long for a wrestling show. And I think that severely hurt the show, especially the last hour in which we saw arguably one of the greatest wrestlers in the history of professional wrestling retire, and in a match that unfortunately I think the fans, one, didn't get into it, and two, they were waiting for Roman to win so they could boo him, which is unfortunate. But for the after effect of that, which I'm sure we'll all have a comment on, was a truly special moment. That aside, we learned that if you have 2 hours for a show versus 7 hours for a show, the 2 hour show will probably be better because they can actually make it have it paced a bit better. As the show very much, NXT TakeOver was a very solid show. For WrestleMania, I will simply say this: it started off okay, at least with the actual main show. I will not note that Ambrose and Corbin continued to show me that Corbin's not ready and Ambrose should never be a main eventer. And for the love of God, I'd love to know what is going on SmackDown, because that world title match between Orton and Wyatt was one of the worst things I have ever seen on a major show. And I watched WCW right through to the end. And I watched Impact Wrestling, TNA, whatever they want to call it, all the way through. And I've watched some of the stuff from Herb Abrams' UWF and some of the horrible stuff from the 90s. Heck, I actually will say this: the Heroes of Wrestling pay-per-view was better as a whole than that match. That match was an insult to, I think, to professional wrestling fans, period. That aside, we found out why AJ Styles was really good. We found out that Owens and Jericho can have a solid match. And we had a heck of a moment with Taker presumably retiring at the end. And I will say this: Goldberg and Lesnar had a fantastic 5-minute match.
Mm-hmm.
I love that match. That was just great.
Yeah, you're the way you described it to me when we were just chit-chatting was the way I've described it to people, where it's just like you're playing. Which game was it with finishers on full? Did you reference?
Oh dear, this was a couple of weeks ago now. It's basically like playing. Well, it's essentially like playing a SmackDown game. And okay, we're just gonna video game this. Someone hits a spear, boom. But just like I think I counted live, there were 5 moves in the entire match.
Yeah, and I'll agree that it was the best 5-move match I've ever seen.
Yeah, 5 different moves, we should say. We had like what, I think 3-4 Germans, something like that. But
well, yeah. Wasley, what were your thoughts on the weekend?
Well, I think Oleg pretty much hit nail on head when he said that 7 hours is just way too long. I mean, at 6 hours, it will probably still too long, but I understand that they have a lot to chew on in because it is WrestleMania. But like having a pre-show and the panel as 2 hours on its own were just too much. And then like the crowd were suffering by end of it, because I thought Roman versus Taker was actually a pretty good match. I think it told a pretty decent story. The ending weren't too bad. The fact that it took how much to take Taker down in end, but that crowd were just dead on the feet by end, and they just weren't into it, and that kind of spoiled it until Roman had like cleared off, and then you got the like heartbreaking moment where Taker just leaves all his gear in ring, and then they kind of picked up again. But in general, I mostly enjoyed Mania. There were a few terrible matches, and I think Oleg's already picked up on them, but there were also some fantastic ones, and overall, I was glad I stayed up to watch it. Yeah.
Yeah, my thoughts are, I mean, I'm not gonna try and play Pete and repeat about the length. I mean, we've covered that. My thoughts were I guess I'm the different one here. I did not like WrestleMania as a whole. It's forgettable. Before this, I had to kind of go remind myself of a lot of what happened, and I don't know if that's because I was delirious by the end of it, or if I just really didn't enjoy it. And for those of you out there listening, the three of us were chatting during the whole thing, and I was chastised for saying I didn't like it. So it was one of those where I didn't like it, but there were good points. I thought on the weekend, the NXT tag title match, I think, stole the show on NXT. I thought the tag title match on WrestleMania was the most memorable, mainly because the Hardys did return.
You see, I don't think that's why that match was as memorable as it were. I just think there were some fantastic spots in that match.
Well, I agree. It was a good match overall. I'm just saying that was the one that captured me from the moment it started. I liked them.
I completely agree. That was my favorite match at Weekend.
Yeah, I thought
apart from maybe NXT tag titles.
Yeah, and I thought the New Day did well teasing that it was going to be them by taking off their gear. And then it was also very telling at the same time. The bad stuff, Randy and Bray, good God Almighty. I mean, that deserves an entire show of just yelling at the WWE, telling them, what the hell were you thinking? There was no point to the projector stuff. None. It served zero purpose. And reading some of the crowd comments saying they couldn't even figure out what it was.
Well, I think I can answer that. I'm going to guess. I have no actual knowledge of this, but I'm going to assume they have hired a high school intern and he had a PowerPoint he wanted to show. Because that's really what that match was. There's a match, a really slow match that basically made Bray Wyatt look like the fluke we all knew him to be. I will note that match, I think, has officially ended any hope of Bray Wyatt ever being taken seriously as a main event competitor. Because it was just, one, a bad match. And two, the PowerPoint of really bad horror movie cliches and tropes and bad gross out stuff. Like, I actually sat there and said, as if I was watching this with friends, I would have actually started to apologize to them, because I was actually embarrassed to be watching the match, and I was watching it alone.
Well, it's like, and I just want to be clear, that wasn't a PowerPoint. They were clips. Let's
True. Well, yeah, you can do some interesting things on PowerPoint now.
Okay there, Doc. The Hall of Fame was good at points. I know that there were some things that just, like the Rock and Roll Express speech, all I remember is going, shut these guys up.
That's a Rock and Roll Express. I love that. As somebody who has watched the Rock and Roll Express, I just like, yep, that's the Rock and Roll Express talking.
Yeah, and I agree. It's just one of those. I'm sitting there going, oh God, is this ever going to end? I thought the speech of the night, Jim Cornette's speech, while long, I loved. But then again, I love Jim Cornette. I think he should just be allowed to speak for as long as he wants, which he does. And that was one. Those were my thoughts. I mean, it was kind of one of those, like I said, I know I'm in the minority on what I thought of WrestleMania. The Undertaker was a very somber moment. I thought they handled it very well. I wasn't one of the ones waiting to boo Roman Reigns because I knew what was going to happen. I just was like, can we just get to it so we can let him have his moment?
Yeah, and I think that was the problem with the show, especially once we got to that 7-hour mark, which one match none of us have mentioned, which should get, actually it's my favorite match of the entire night, was Neville and Aries, which was a fantastic match with a fantastic story and a really well done job of both look like $1 million and making Neville look like a really good heel. this is now the WWE Network era of pay-per-views and events. And I think what we saw, especially with the Hall of Fame and with WrestleMania, and we've seen this with a few of the other pay-per-views, is that typical 3-hour window no longer exists. And you know what? If they want to go long, they're going to go long. And I think that has actually hurt the quality of the shows quite a bit, because this is the first time where I actually was just like, okay, I felt bad for example, the SmackDown women's match that came on after Lesnar and Goldberg, as I'm pretty sure if we set some of them on fire, nobody would have cared, because everyone was just like, this is going on forever. One great tweet, I believe it was of Mike, I want to say it's Mike Johnson, I might have the name wrong, of PW Insider, but it says, "We all now live here. We're never allowed to leave." And if you're here, if feeling that in the crowd, imagine if you're sitting at home when you can get up and leave. Yeah. How many people didn't stay around for the end of the Taker match? Or how many people tuned out of some of the major matches and then came back? And that's just doing a lot of things a disservice. And I think, like, especially some of those earlier matches were 15, 20 minutes in length. Shorten them down. You don't need that. I know you want to give everyone this great stage to perform. But that's, I think, the one thing that's missing is you can have this many matches. You have to pace it better.
See, I'd be interested to see the statistics of how many people from the UK and further west tuned out early, because for us on this side of Atlantic, I mean, show didn't go off air until 5:30 in the morning, and I did stay up for the whole thing, but for the Hall of Fame I didn't. I watched DDP get inducted and then went to bed. I did stay up for NXT because NXT is never going to run stupidly late. But with Mania, there were parts where I wanted to just lay down on sofa and hopefully wake up before the next match came on. So it'd be interesting to see the statistics, if they ever did release them, of how many people turned off early.
Oh yeah, they'll never do that. They'll never want to let people know that people actually tuned out at any point.
It'll be like TNA pay-per-view buy rates. They'll never let us know what it truly is.
People pay to watch TNA?
Sorry, it's Impact Wrestling, and no, they don't.
Yeah, they pay by watching it. They're paying with their lives.
Yeah, yes, they've wasted 3 hours to watch some of those shows.
All right, well, moving on. We had the Raw after WrestleMania. It was what it was, but then we had the Superstar shakeup, because that's the next real big thing. And on the whole, who do y'all think won? Because my personal opinion is Raw won. SmackDown kind of got really taken for a ride on that one.
In a way, yes, but at the same time, you got to think that not everybody that's turning up to SmackDown is actually fit at the minute. Because Rusev on SmackDown could actually do some really good things. Mm-hmm. But he's obviously not fit, so we're not going to see him for a while yet. Well, but when he does come back...
Oh, go ahead.
When he does come back, I mean, this could be the chance that Rusev's needed for a while, because he's sort of once Cena obliterated him, for about 23 different times in a row because he dared to beat him once. It just squashed Rusev's credibility. Yeah, and he's suffered since.
And the thing is my thoughts are, I know Oleg's not a huge fan of Ambrose and doesn't think Wyatt has much, but The Miz, Ambrose, and Wyatt as really the top three, and Alexa Bliss, that one surprised me, because I thought I didn't think they would pull her over because she was doing so well on SmackDown, and exchanging those four for the equivalent of Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, and Charlotte. I'm not the biggest Charlotte fan. I agree she's great, but I'm just not a huge fan of her, because I think they're trying to make her dad rather than let her be herself. So that's just what I don't like. I unless you're going to argue that David Otunga makes Raw weaker, I don't think. I just think Raw got a better deal on that one.
Well, and I would 100% agree with you if I was watching just last week's show. I didn't watch this week's show, and the one thing that I started to think about it, and a lot of, I'm sure we'll get to talking about it in a little bit more details, Jinder Mahal winning the number one contendership. And I thought about it a bit, and I sat there and said, initially I was just like, okay, this is a little bit out of the blue. And then you have the Shining Stars, who went from being a complete joke to all of a sudden now getting a strong heel push and looking like they're more serious. But I was thinking about it going, SmackDown has always been portrayed as the land of opportunity. And we heard Shane say this multiple times over. And I think despite the fact of, yes, from a pure on paper standpoint, the rosters are very much skewed now towards Raw. There's much less star power in terms of recognizable names that the casual fan will draw to. And to be fair, the ratings already seem to reflect that. But if you're going to say, we're going to make SmackDown the land of opportunity, you know what? I'm okay with some of the deals. And both shows now have, and that was the one thing having watched Raw, and I just watched SmackDown because I wasn't able to live here in Canada thanks to hockey playoffs. I just watched it actually this afternoon, and the first reaction I had was they're now very different shows, and not just because of the time length of the shows. They feel like different shows in that people are getting true opportunities on SmackDown, people who might be underutilized or are just going to have some good matches, but we're not having, we got 25 minutes to kill, so let's put these two people in a match. Raw is more the entertainment show. Raw is more the big personalities, the talkers and things like this, which Bray Wyatt might fit there more, except for the one thing I have, and this is the question I had through both shows, was they said that apparently when Vince made the announcement that there was going to be trades and there was going to be some sort of wheeling and dealing, and they showed none of it.
Yeah.
And I don't care. It's not that I want to sit there and know, okay, they're making this deal. I understand the desire for the surprise, but I would love to have a couple of segments where you have Kurt Angle talking to Shane. And on the phone even, and it's like, well, what about this? You know what? I'm very interested in Bray Wyatt. What would we need to give you for it? Because first off, I want to know, like, did Jinder Mahal go over for Bray Wyatt? Because that's, I think, what his value is. And that's not a shot at Jinder Mahal, because Jinder Mahal is obviously now being positioned as a main eventer. But Bray Wyatt, to me, is useless. If I'm watching, if I'm Raw, he just lost convincingly a main event match, and he looked like a fluke, and he has been booked into oblivion. And he does the same promo over and over and over again. I'm going, who would I rather have? AJ Styles, Baron Corbin, the entire roster. That was my whole thought, is I'd love to know what some of these deals were. And again, I'm putting my personal evaluations on certain people. And I say that also being a bit saddened because I used to be a big Bray Wyatt fan. But I'd love to know what the deals were, because in the same time, that's how you can then make some of these sort of the people who haven't gotten a fair shake, the Rusevs, the Apollo Crews, these individuals where you can then say, you know what, I really want them. I like their heart, or I like this. And so you give something that the fans can then go, hey, you know what, there's some value here. And then you can build something around that. It's an easy way for you to give some of those people who haven't really had much to have something, because Dean Ambrose, Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, The Miz, even though I feel bad for The Miz and Dean Ambrose doing pretty much now the exact same feud they did several months ago, now on Raw. Shining stars, like you can give people a reason to care about these people, so then you can actually rebuild them, as opposed to now trying to convince fans, oh yeah, they might have sucked for 6 months over on Raw, but you know what, now they're getting a fair shake. Are they?
Well, I want to play hypothetical with you because I'm curious your thoughts. We're gonna pretend that these wheeling and dealings really happened. What the hell did they have to give up for Kurt Hawkins? I mean, or actually, more importantly, what did SmackDown have to actually offer for them to actually want Kurt Hawkins? I mean, that's one of those where I'm like, why did you just waste our TV time with Kurt Hawkins?
Well, first off, I would be putting Bray Wyatt in that position, not Kurt Hawkins. But
wow,
I actually think Kurt Hawkins has more credibility than Bray Wyatt right now, to most fans. But I think Kurt Hawkins, Jinder Mahal was the obvious trade, because they were both positioned in the same place, and that's in terms of both being sort of the comedy, we send somebody out there to take a loss act. Now SmackDown immediately has one off on that deal, and I actually will say the Jinder Mahal Bollywood Boys potential angle really interests me, at least in terms of the three of them together getting an opportunity.
Yeah, one thing on that I'm actually happy with is they're not trying to. I mean, yeah, they're doing their typical. We have to have the anti-American
Yeah, that part irks me because I'm just like, come on, guys, we're past this.
But they're not trying to make it the stereotypical. Okay, who's a big threat to the U.S.? Well, it was Iran when it was the Sheik, and then it was Russia with Rusev. But they're actually just saying, all right, he's of Indian descent, and he is who he is. They're not trying to make it up as this. They're a foe of America, so now they're this guy, like they did with Muhammad Hassan, which was he was an American guy that they decided to portray as this this sympathizer rather than just letting him be who he is.
Mm-hmm. My only issue is that, and they're doing this also with Kevin Owens at the same time, is both of them are portraying an anti-divert, like are talking about, well, let's support diversity and getting booed for it. And that to me is a little bit, with today's political climate, which I know we don't like talking about the seriousness of things like that and it's only professional wrestling, but it's also just curious that they went that route when they could have just had Jinder Mahal just be a prick instead of being, oh, well, I'm Indian, I've never gotten a fair shake, and you're booing the fact that diversity and there's now an Indian competing for the world championship angle. That's the only part that sort of irks me, and it's only just because, again, yes, that works in it has worked in professional wrestling, but it's also then that part of me in the back of my head is going, it's 2017. Can we now start not immediately just playing off the old xenophobic things that we had in the past? So
it feels like lazy booking.
There is, and I almost wonder if what they just said is listen to the crowd response and respond accordingly.
Yeah.
Because they couldn't have guaranteed he would have gotten booed, though they were probably had a good idea of it. But that aside, how they've packaged it, I really do like that they're doing something with the Bollywood boys and with Jinder Mahal. Is because I've always felt Jinder Mahal should have gotten a little bit more of a fair shake in his initial run back in the day. And then he was saddled with 3MB, and now he's just there. And the fact is through a battle royal, you can do something a little bit more fluky and give somebody an opportunity. And I hope that he can take advantage and really show what he can do in the ring.
The only downside is they missed the opportunity that I was hoping they would have, which was putting Mojo Rawley in the main event and finally giving Gronk Jr. a little bit of a chance to win a little gold.
That's the 10 seconds that we said that you can have talking about Mojo Beard. So we're not allowed to mention him for the rest of this podcast.
and when SmackDown shows up, either has an event in Boston, I'm sure that's when he might get his opportunity so they can have their celebrity appearance.
I was really surprised at WrestleMania that they went with it, and I know I got a little skewered on Twitter saying it was my fault, but. It was
entirely your fault. They listened to our podcast and went, well, that sounds like a fantastic idea.
Well, in a sense, hey, I want to say that they might have, because you were the one that said that they should just have it go out there and with The Undertaker have him take several spears, several punches, and just keep getting up, making it harder and harder. And then what do? They could have listened. They could have listened to what I said about Mojo, what you said about the main event, and you know what?
And if you want a trifecta for that, I'm pretty sure that I was the one that was saying Neville has to win, whereas everybody was saying it were obvious that it were going to be Aries. So that's 3 things that we got right at least.
All right. Well, at least we know we have listeners inside WWE HQ's creative team.
Oh dear.
So since they're listening, Mojo for a world title run, and I need Heath Slater also on a universal title run on the other brand. So here's to you.
One of the funny things about the Mojo winning is that one of our mutual friends on Twitter wasn't complaining that Mojo won. He was complaining that Gronk got involved and he should be training for the upcoming season. I'm thinking that pretty much summarizes that entire thing.
Yeah, we're harkening back to the old days of Dennis Rodman and WCW. Get involved on WCW Nitro. He should be training for the season.
Mm-hmm. And Lawrence Taylor getting involved against Bam Bam Bigelow.
There we go. We should probably, however, go back to these hypothetical trades that we think might have happened.
Well, I mean, there's another obvious one. I mean, Slater and Rhino for the Shining Stars. That's another one where I say Raw got the better end of the deal. Although if they get this whole Shining Stars thing off of it and let them just be Primo and Epico and kind of let them just be dicks and douchebags and like they were on SmackDown, there's a little more hope, I think. But
see, and I'm sure that I read an article a few days ago saying that is the plan. I'm sure it was Meltzer that said that they're going to be like getting rid of the Shining Stars whole like shtick.
Well,
and going back to.
They first need to make sure they sell all their proper timeshares first, because they now have a new market. But I think that's the one, like, and that's the one thing that goes back to sort of my one point that I made with people being called up, which obviously we can talk about that in a few moments. But they've got an opportunity with the Superstar Shake. That's the one thing that actually has me a little bit excited about it is, despite my issues of how it was presented, you now have an opportunity to actually use the talent you have better. And I think like Primo and Epico deserve better. They're both solid hands in the ring. I typically just at least enjoy their work, and they know what they're doing. Jinder Mahal is getting a fair shake. Bollywood Boys, as a result, are going to get an opportunity, it seems like. Even things like Mojo Rawley, like whether you're a fan of him or not, he's getting an opportunity. Baron Corbin's now getting his opportunity. Kevin Owens has a new set of challengers. Sami Zayn, I hope he doesn't continue being sort of this slightly annoying pest type face character, but other than that, like, he's probably going to get a better shake. I'm worried about Miz. I'm worried about Ambrose. Charlotte has new potential opponents. I also like how some people didn't like how Tamina was brought back. I liked it. It immediately sets her up as a heel. So
my only beef with Tamina being brought back like that is she was already on SmackDown's roster, and then they acted like that was some part of the shakeup, and that was my only beef with it. It wasn't the fact she was brought back at all. It was the fact that, I mean, she was already there.
They were just no doubt counting on like 99% of the fans not actually remembering that she exists.
Well, and she's been, I can't remember even when her last match was. I know it was probably, I want to say, a year ago. I could be wrong about that because I don't recall it. But I think it was more just, this is an opportunity for us to reintroduce her in a fairly safe way. If they turn on it, well, we've then got Charlotte coming out. If they don't turn on it and they boo her, great. We get the reaction we want. Yeah. It's one where they had the opportunity. Let's do it. Which fine. I'm not gonna get on them for that. My only bigger issue is that she's now not, I don't think, been on the show at all. No, great, she's back, and now she's she couldn't find the arena.
Well, and I don't think they know what they're doing a lot with the SmackDown women outside of Charlotte, because what made no sense to me, it was when you have Natty, and I believe Tamina was there with.
I must have missed her then.
Carmella and Mr. Carmella. And she says, well, we know what we have to do. And they leave and they never show back up. I could have sworn we were going to see them interfere, take out Charlotte, and set up, say, a fatal four-way for the number one contendership. But then they just, they vanished. And I was like, what the hell was the point of that segment then?
Or what match was set up for next week?
But you already have now the number one contender, or are you saying that there's going to be another number one contender for whoever wins?
No, they're going to cost Charlotte the title.
But that was before she actually won. So
she won to earn her shot. The shot is next week.
Well, no. What I'm saying is they did that whole thing. If it's to cost Charlotte, I'm saying that they needed to air that after the fact. Versus before that match has ever happened, because it's like, what's the point right now? And that's where I'm just like, I think that was either poor scripting or
certainly, but I think that's what they're aiming for. They're going to cost Charlotte the title next week. Is what they're sort of setting up. Whether it's well done or not, again, it's SmackDown the last 2 months, so it's probably not. I will note that I'm happy that they realized that there's a tag division on SmackDown, though. Good on them. Finally, we now know they exist.
Yeah, and I do think with the Shining Stars being a little more aggressive and not trying to hawk their timeshares, I think that's gonna improve the tag division. I was surprised they went over American Alpha that quickly. But I guess it goes back to what you said, Oleg. It's a land of opportunity.
And I think what they're doing is the problem with the Shining Stars is that in order to rebuild them, you have to make them look strong now. And unfortunately, that meant American Alpha got fed to them. And in one sense, I'd be angry because I do think American Alpha deserved better. But at the same time, they've been given no airtime. Even their title reign just existed. I don't know if they can talk. I know they can, obviously, from watching NXT, but on main roster, I don't know if they can talk. The one thing I will say is that despite all the flaws of how they've done things lately, SmackDown had a couple of really smart things. And actually, the Super Shakeup did one thing really well. Apollo Crews got a vignette to show that he was coming over to Raw. In that vignette, I cared more about Apollo Crews than I have the entirety of his WWE run.
And you know, when they showed him on Raw and showed him with Titus O'Neil, I'm like, you know, that might actually work.
Yeah.
That was the first time I actually sat there and went, I want to see what Apollo Crews does.
Yeah, like they did that. They did that with Rusev. Then they did on this week's on SmackDown with Shinsuke Nakamura and Ty Dillinger. Here's some quick hype videos. We've got NXT. Let's show what they can do. And in the process, what they're doing is all of us that are hardcore fans, we know what they can do. But the casual fans don't. And so now the casual fans who went, okay, Nakamura and Ty Dillinger are getting these huge reactions. Okay, well, why? We now know. The same, and like with Apollo Crews and Rusev and these opportunities for them to get like a fresh start. They've already started them in a very minor way that at least makes them seem like exciting new acquisitions instead of, oh yeah, we got Apollo Crews, or oh yeah, we got Rusev, which I like that. They've done those little things well on the Superstar from the Superstar Shakeup and going forward. I hope they continue it because it's an opportunity for them to start building those new stars they desperately need, I think, on both brands. The one thing that I will note that they did a great job on Raw was the Revival's debut.
Oh, that was
destroying
amazing.
the New Day. Unfortunately, I can't remember which one, but one of them broke their jaw. And so they're out.
That was Dash Wilder.
Yeah, Dash Wilder broke their jaw, and so they're going to be out, I believe, until the end of June, which is a shame because they had a very good start, and I was really excited to see what they can do, but hopefully it won't derail them too much, and we can see what they can do. And yeah, because the Revival, they came in, and they did what they needed to do to turn a lot of heads, and I'm really excited about what they might have coming for them.
Yeah, no, and one thing, going back to lazy booking with this Superstar Shakeup, because I think that made the whole thing suffer, is this idea that we're still supposed to believe that the United States title could actually change hands at Payback.
Yep.
Actually, they fixed that.
How?
Now, if Jericho wins, he goes to SmackDown and Owens returns.
Oh, yeah. Well, I get that, but really, when it's well known that Jericho's leaving to go tour, but yet we're supposed to believe that it could happen. And then the whole thing, taking Bray Wyatt when he's still in a major feud, and then just saying, oh, well, by the way, now that, as Wasley was telling me, the title's not on the line. So what was the point of trying to screw up storylines until their completion and really make me not care?
Can I offer a suggestion for each of those two angles?
Please do, Professor D.
For Bray Wyatt and Randy Orton, it's Bray Wyatt. Who cares? For Owens and Jericho, we all know Jericho's leaving. And yes, those who scour the internet probably know Jericho is leaving. The casual fan probably may not know, or may be thinking, you know what? He could still win the title and lose it on SmackDown. Because that's still one of those things that you hear. Well, he could still win it and then lose it on SmackDown or something. They're at least providing some logic so that way we don't immediately know, okay, Owens will win. Smart money says he's going to win. Anybody who knows Jericho's touring schedule will probably think the same. But at least to their credit, they're trying to cover up that by saying, because that's the one thing that always drove me nuts is, okay, well, so-and-so's getting an opportunity, but so they're going to face Stone Cold Steve Austin, who's already holding the title. Well, wait a minute. They have a title match before that, so we now know who's going to win. At least they're trying to cover up the fact that, yes, we know this is all sort of we know who's going to win. We know who's going to lose. We're going to at least give you the idea that we might switch the title. They're at least not insulting their fans in that way. I think they also did not want to insult their fans by having Bray Wyatt in a title match that everyone and their brother knew he was never going to win, because he can't have really bad pictures of cockroaches and stuff playing on the bottom of whatever. I'm driving that point into the ground, but I have a feeling that a lot of it was the Bray Wyatt experiment is largely over. He'll probably be a main eventer who will probably get fed to, or a mid-carder will get fed to Finn Balor, and then we'll see what happens.
But at the same time, the title not being on the line, at least like you said, teases the idea that Bray may win.
Yep.
When those two, mainly when Ambrose came over and you knew then Owens was going to go on SmackDown, I'm just sitting there going, ugh. Actually, my hope for that was that Owens would lose to Sami Zayn, and then Sami Zayn would go over as champion, and so then it would allow for the feud to come to completion without having to basically do cleanup on it.
There is one thing that I wish they would do, and I there's still time, I believe.
Let Jericho talk more.
No, that's actually the one thing that I think this feud is now starting to suffer from, is let them. They've already touched in the ring, so therefore we've gotten that step out of the way. Jericho cutting cutesy promos about how he wants to get his title back, while entertaining, they don't sell me on the match. I want Jericho to show up on SmackDown and just all of a sudden, while Kevin Owens is giving one of his condescending promos about how he's the face of America, have him come up from behind and nail him from behind and say, yeah, well, you might be the face of America. I might be here next week. Just have him do that on SmackDown. Because one, that little seed of Jericho all of a sudden showing up on SmackDown will probably get a few more people to go, okay, this might be possible. Little minor things like that, I think, really could help this remove some of those things. Okay, we know Owens is going to win, but give Jericho something where, okay, we know that this is personal. We know that there's something here. Jericho is talented enough that I think he could do the you're on the list shtick with a little bit of seriousness, and it would work. So,
yeah. See, that's the one thing that I don't like about face Jericho, is that when he was heel Jericho, it was, you just made the list. There was this anger to it, and now it's like Rockstar Jericho saying it. I'm like, go back to angry Jericho saying you just made the list.
Well, it wasn't even just that. That was arrogant Jericho. You just made arrogant. I'm prima donna Jericho. So you could at least believe that it's might be comedic, but it's serious in that that's the character, in that he's just that conceited. You could buy into it. I think that's the one problem that some of these things are getting. They're trying to be too cutesy at times, and have a little bit more anger. You don't need to have them. We don't need everyone sort of going to the level of Braun Strowman, Roman Reigns level of angry, which I'm sure we'll get to those lovely angles.
That was actually going to be my segue. Was speaking of angry.
Yeah. But yeah, you just have to have a little bit more seriousness at times, and you can still have the comedy with some seriousness.
Well, speaking of angry, let's just get right into it. Let's get into, arguably, in my opinion, the storyline that everybody's talking about. Braun Strowman and Roman Reigns, and it's actually one where it put a big smile on my face because nothing made me happier except for the many plot holes that were created with the shoddy Kevin Dunn editing of watching Roman Reigns just get thrown around like a rag doll.
See, I just want to point out something that this storyline, it's something that Oleg pointed out to me, I think it was last week, is that kayfabe is not dead. Because you got that petition that was started to have Braun Strowman fired because of what he did to Roman Reigns. And then didn't they actually fire him at one point as well for doing what he'd done?
No, that was AJ they fired.
Yeah. See, and this is that's the immediate problem I have with everything. Is one, unfortunately, your hope that Roman Reigns would be on the shelf for a while doesn't seem to be the case.
No, but I do have an idea of because I was sitting there thinking seriously. I wasn't thinking with my completely swayed I hate Roman Reigns point of view. I was thinking, okay, another way to maybe start the whole let's try to get him a little more endeared to the crowd. And this, I think, actually helps in the sense of it reminds me of when you see people just keep getting big, like with Brock Lesnar and Goldberg. It was an obvious face and heel in the first confrontation. Brock Lesnar was the heel, Goldberg was the face. Goldberg trounces him, then trounces Kevin Owens. You get to WrestleMania, people are cheering Brock Lesnar because they want to see the man who's been beaten down and just beaten and thrown around by this old guy finally come out on top. They're tired of it. And so that's why I'm wondering if maybe you have Braun Strowman actually win at Payback to then have Roman climb back up and somehow finally beat him, but keep building Braun as this just beast. Because you have to set up, before you can do Roman and Lesnar, you have to set up Braun and Brock. They teased that already.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't have him lose to Reigns and then throw him in the world title picture. So why not have him just somehow beat Roman and then have Roman work his way back up?
I would love for that to be the case.
Yeah.
Here's my problem.
Oh, God.
Braun Strowman was not just cheered when he not only had probably the most comical attack on WWE television in years.
He became the biggest face of the company.
Yeah, they I've never seen a crowd just do it. And the funny thing is the following week he was booed a bit, which very much shows that it really depends on the crowd, and they're going to have a hard, like, no matter what. I think Roman Reigns is going to get a divisive reaction no matter what they do. But with Braun Strowman, one, they had him just keep coming back to the point I started laughing, which is not the reaction you want to have because it just started to get comedic.
Yeah,
but the other problem I had.
Didn't you say to me that you just expect him to come back and the ambulance to be on fire next?
Yeah, what goofy thing's going to happen next? But here's the other problem that I had with it, and this is just a fundamental issue I have with WWE television. We just saw 4 weeks earlier, AJ attack Shane McMahon. That attack looked 10 times more brutal for one simple reason. He threw him through the glass window, and Shane was bleeding. Probably not intended. But that alone made that attack seem far more serious than anything Braun Strowman did, because Roman Reigns did not have a scratch on him after apparently being tossed off of a loading dock while strapped to a gurney, while being put in an ambulance and it being tipped over. He just happened to be slightly unconscious.
Well, yeah, the one thing about the whole ambulance thing is he was put in on the side that tipped over, so all he did was kind of roll on his side.
Yeah. Like, it's one of those where it's just like, this is the problem is if you're going to do this attack, I understand you don't want to go crazy with the blood, but you do what they did years ago when, I don't know if you recall, there was a match where this is leading up to, or sometime about May 1999, I want to say, The Rock was put into a casket. And Triple H came out with a sledgehammer. They closed the casket. He beats on the casket a little bit with it. And then backstage, they have all the officials open up the casket knowing they have to go in to save The Rock. And they all turn away in a revulsion because he's apparently a bloody mess, but they never show him. Mm-hmm. So we assume it looks awful. That's all they needed to do to change it in my mind, because if you don't want to show blood, and I understand it with it being a PG product, and I fully buy all that. This is either one of those times where you have to either selectively use blood to make the point that this was a serious attack, or you have it where people are turning away and they can't actually see him because he looks that bad. The problem is then if you do that, he has to be off TV for at least a month. That's not happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They still have the match. It's booked. Okay, well, that was just another week in the WWE, and as a result, that just drove me nuts because it was in one sense a great angle in that this is how you can really add either. Normally you would add heat, but in this case, you could really have Roman Reigns go off and say, you know what, I heard the cheers. Similar to that Mick Foley promo that he gave when the Austin chants after he was being assaulted in the steel cage. They were chanting Austin after WrestleMania 14. You do something like that where he doesn't turn, but he turns. So you can still have your best of both worlds, because they already said they already started to go down that route with him just standing there and accepting all the boos after the Taker victory.
You see, I was going to mention that in that I honestly think that is the best Roman Reigns segment we have seen in probably a year, and that I don't even say that ironically. That I genuinely meant that I had like hairs up on the back of my neck watching that at the start of Raw after Mania.
Yeah, that was one of those few things where his one line, as much as I do not like Roman Reigns, that one line served a major purpose.
Yep.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I was howling at the chants. The chants of, I mean, they weren't your typical I mean, yeah, we got asshole in there, but when you get "F you Roman," go away. I was
Yeah.
when they started chanting "go away," I was just like, that one is that's a more poignant chant than any of the ones that involve any kind of derogatory language.
Yeah. But the thing is that they're a specific crowd. They're a very hardcore crowd, which great. The thing is use that. And I think the problem was that their mistake is then they went to what would be a typical old school wrestling angle to build heat for Roman or for Strowman, and it didn't work.
Well,
Instead, Strowman got cheered.
The other problem was then so you have him go out there, basically tell the fans to F off, and then you start having him sit down with Michael Cole to talk about what it meant to him.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, we don't care. It's one of those, why does that matter now?
But the thing is, I think when you had that where he literally just went out to the ring and took all the booze for like what felt like an hour, but we're probably 5 minutes maybe.
Yeah.
That
About 10 to
segment
15.
alone teased the idea that maybe they are going to turn Roman heel.
Well, and they don't have to turn him heel. He is.
Yeah, but it's like people are crying out for an actual heel turn. And I get that, what Triple H said, that if someone's getting booed, that makes them a heel. But they're still pushing him as a face. And that one segment were enough to think, is this where they're actually going to pull the trigger?
Mm.
And they are going to give him a real heel turn. And then you come to the week after, and no, he's just getting the snot kicked out of him, and we're meant to be devastated, and nobody is.
Yeah, see, that's one of those things. I don't like that idea of if you're being booed, you're a heel. I get the point behind it. I don't agree with it in the sense of you can be booed but still be the good guy. I mean, it happened when he was Rocky Maivia.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's one of those. Then they realized, okay, if he was a heel, then why did they have to make The Rock?
Well, and the one thing, one different time period. That was 20 years ago, just to really date us all. But also, I think the thing is that because he just stood there and took it, and then he said, "Now this is my yard." Or I think that's what he said. I can't remember now.
This is my yard now.
Yeah. All he did with that was he let the crowd decide, okay, you want to boo him? The Undertaker's a legend. The crowd loves him. So by him saying that alone, that was in my mind enough of a heel turn. But what it also was if you want to cheer me, go for it. I think the WWE, and like I wish they'd come through and they didn't. That's why I don't like the attack from also that point of view, is they tried to still characterize Roman as a face. He's a heel just by him stating that in such a confident way of, look, I don't care what you think. And that alone is all you need to sometimes do, is you do stuff like that. And then all you just do is when you're booking him, you intentionally don't put him in a way that this is engendered to make people sympathetic. That's not going to work anymore with him. So you stop putting him in those situations, which also then means consequently you can't have him play Superman all the time. And I think if you then do that, you'll get a much more balanced and true reaction from the crowd. Because I think that's the one thing that a lot of people are also annoyed with, was as time went, and now not only are we getting him shoved down our throats, but we're getting the Super Cena treatment for Roman now. Whereas, like, you look at Cena, even though he got, like, with the Miz feud, he got some really negative reactions. Prior to that, against AJ, against Ambrose, he was getting some really good reactions. Because I think people realized, okay, you know what? He's no longer he's willing to just have some good things. And so then once you get that, now people can just enjoy what he's doing and cheer or boo or whatever.
Yeah, that makes sense. So the question is where do they go with that feud?
Roman wins and Braun Strowman's going to somehow still get a title shot because that's all they seemingly know how to do. I have very low hopes for it, even though they're done. I will say this, even though I absolutely hated the ring breaking. Initially, I groaned when I saw it. I was just like, "Oh, here we go! It's been 5 years. It's like a comet returning around the Earth.
Yes,
they're going to break the ring."
The last time the ring broke was at Vengeance 2011. How do I know that? I was at that pay-per-view in San Antonio, Texas.
Yeah. So but the one thing I then loved that they did was Braun Strowman got up.
Yes.
And to me, I'm just like, that is brilliant, because now, one, it's not a direct copy, and two, for those sort of fans who remember when Brock and Big Show broke the ring and Big Show and Mark Henry. Braun got up, they didn't. So he's also better than they were. It's a nice sort of little thing where people can make their own conclusions, but it also teases that Brock Lesnar thing if they want to go down that road. I doubt they're going to do that, but I would love to see them do it. But they're doing a great job of rebuilding Braun again as a monster heel after booking him so horribly, going into basically after Royal Rumble.
But let's just be honest. The greatest part of that ring breaking was John Cone. He deserves a mention because the fact he fell off the side of the planet when that ring broke and he misses the ring and falls flat on his face. I was almost in tears. I was laughing so hard at that because that's what I remember from when Mark Henry and the Big Show broke the ring, was watching. I believe it was Little Nate do it. The ring breaks, and then long after the two of them are on the ground and the ring's broken, then he kind of flops behind it. It was so melodramatic. John Cone falling and just looking like a rag doll flying off the side of the ring and missing it made my day. And then the Twitter response to it of rest in peace, John Cone for Hall of Fame, John Cone died for your sins. It made me so happy, and I don't know why, but that was one of my favorite moments of that ring break. And you're right, for a storyline purpose, Braun getting up was fantastic, but it was so overshadowed by John Cone.
But again, details matter. See, I keep saying details matter.
You see, the funny thing is, I haven't seen it yet. I just read the report the day after, and I didn't know half of this stuff. So now I really want to go back and watch Raw just to watch this unfold.
See, we have sold you on WWE Raw.
Yeah, but
and maybe slightly SmackDown. All the wrong reasons.
Oh yeah, it was an epic. It was an epic moment. I mean, I was talking to multiple people, and they all were like, "Oh, get ready for the ring break! Get ready for the ring break!" And I mean, you knew it was coming, and you're like, "Oh, here it comes, yay!" But at the same time, seeing Strowman get up, seeing Cone fly, it was one of the most memorable ones. And the only reason I remember, like I said, I remember the Mark Henry Big Show one as well as I do is because I was there, and then I had to watch Cena and Alberto Del Rio come out and try to figure out how to wrestle a match in a broken ring. And so it was a good moment. It was something that it made Raw enjoyable to me, was just that ending. And there was almost a throwback to Big Show lawn darting Rey Mysterio into the side of the bus when Braun picks up.
You mean Kevin Nash did that too?
Didn't he? I thought Big Show did it.
Big Show used him as a baseball bat on the ring post.
Oh,
I
that's
could be
right.
wrong. I
Yeah,
don't recall him using Rey
sw-
Mysterio as a lawn dart into a bus.
See, I thought it was somebody used Rey Mysterio as a lawn dart into the side of a truck.
That was Kevin Nash just after the NWO debut.
And Big Show was when he was strapped to a board using a baseball bat across the ring post.
Yes.
Okay, my mistake. That's why we have you, Professor D.
Oh, it's nice under here, innit? Under Learning Tree. Such a comfortable seat.
You need to start charging tuition.
But seeing Braun pick up whichever Lucha Dragon is and Botch Fest that one was and toss him into the trash can, it almost flashed me back to whichever one. The other one's on SmackDown because for reasons. Yeah, for reasons.
Everyone was just like, "Oh, the Lucha Dragons are back." Nope, not anymore.
We can see them botch on both shows now. Hooray!
Yeah. Sin Cara is now back into witness protection. Great.
Matthew's sitting there going, "Yay, I have multiple shows I can pull off of." But it was just little moments like that, and then for the Mark like me who watches a lot of the stuff on the personal Instagram pages and seeing Braun Strowman write his little "Thank you, Big Show" kind of thing, it really, to me, that was kind of a big man passing of the torch. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was well done.
And since we do know that Big Show is planning to retire, and actually that this last WrestleMania was apparently his final WrestleMania, and he's confirmed that in interviews. I will say this is for a big man match. I know we all sit there and say, well, work rate is everything, especially for us hardcore fans. That was a great big man match, but also just a good, entertaining match.
Yeah.
Even though we all obviously when they're trying to, here we go, superplex, and I started going after the second time, I was like, they're doing the ring breaking spot. I'm still entertained in the match, and one, I think that's a credit to how far Braun Strowman has gone. And also Big Show. And for those who are on, I should add this, I've seen this a number of times now, it's a great point being made about, say, Jinder Mahal and even the Shining Stars. There was a point where we really didn't want to see Braun Strowman do anything. Mm-hmm. And now Braun Strowman is a fantastic heel that people really want to see. What is he going to do? Same could happen with Jinder Mahal, with the Shining Stars, with a few other people, even potentially a Bray Wyatt rebuild. Who knows?
Yeah, let it be known. Let's mark this time right now, today. Professor D is predicting that Jinder Mahal is the next big thing in wrestling.
No. I'm not going to say that. No. I do think, however, he'll be a solid, good mid-card act, and I'm just happy to see, again, some fresh faces getting some opportunities, because I think that's the one thing missing in today's wrestling landscape is not just fresh faces, but fresh faces getting a true opportunity to say, okay, here's your shot, go. Especially with the same guys on top for so long, and Orton and Cena aren't going to be there for too much. Like, can't keep going. Lesnar's part-time, Taker's gone. Reigns is Reigns.
Triple H is part-time, one match a year. And, and going back to that ring break, I think I figured out why the referee bump made me so happy. It's because if for those of you who might have not seen it, and Wasley, this is you included, watch the stairs right by where he falls. It looks like the stairs are about to land on his head. And that was what I'm like, give me another angle to let me know he didn't just get decapitated by the stairs. And then when I realized that they didn't come close to him, then it just became funny.
This is what we now watch professional wrestling for.
Yes, potential decapitations, people getting thrown around on stretchers, and when someone's pretending to lift an ambulance, the winch that you can hear in the background. That was the one damn thing of that whole thing. When you can hear the winch pulling that thing up, I'm just like, And if they had just put him in the small ambulance that he ended up leaving in and had him tip that one over, you would have had a little more of a believable nature to it. You wouldn't have had to have a winch because he's strong enough. He probably could have lifted a glorified Suburban. And then you put him in the real box-looking ambulance to send him off to the pretend hospital. But no, details, they don't matter.
Actually, in that case, they've apparently done, the physicist has chimed in, I was reading this online, that it wouldn't have been possible anyway. So it's just like, God damn you, physics.
It wouldn't have been possible for what?
For him to flip the ambulance. And also, I think it's one of those weird things. While that would make sense in terms of him potentially being able to do it, is, if I'm not mistaken, typically they have a normal box ambulance anyways for any time they do a angle. So it would probably have actually tipped off those fans who are paying attention far closer that something was off. So actually, the fact that they brought in then a smaller ambulance suggests that they didn't have just one there and they had to call one in at the last minute. See, details either way could go. Yes. Now we're really getting to the ridiculousness of this angle.
Well, if we're going into ridiculousness, let's talk about Kofi Kingston, the blow-up doll. I'm just kidding.
Oh, dear.
But hey, we were all right in the sense that when we were chatting that either the New Day or Enzo and Cass were going. They were splitting them two up to keep the comedy acts separate. So we can feel right on that. Hooray.
And hopefully the New Day can be freshened up, because they are incredibly stale at right now. They're now changed the channel levels for me, which is a shame.
They did well hosting though.
Oh yeah, they did well hosting. I don't care for their promos anymore. I'm just to a point of it's gotten into the Enzo and Cass shtick where, okay, it's now the same promo every week, and that's fine if all you're doing is the old New Age Outlaws. You walk to the ring. This is my ring entrance. It's now here's 3 or 4 minutes, and I'm going, well, what's happening on at the Jays game or the what have you? So
the Maple Leafs game, right?
No, Montreal Canadiens. I cheer for a winning team, and as I say that, they're now down 3-2 against the Rangers. So here comes all the people making fun of me.
And how are the Maple Leafs doing in the playoffs? I haven't checked.
They're tied their series.
Oh, okay. Winning teams.
Against the Capitals, which that one is more an indictment on the Capitals than it is the Maple Leafs. So,
And before we turn this into hockey talk, I think instead of going for the marathon like we did last time, we decided we wanted to keep it around an hour. We're right around that length. I hope everyone enjoyed it. It was a little more enjoyable to do. It didn't feel like watching WrestleMania and doing another podcast, because that's what our first one felt like. It felt like WrestleMania.
Yeah, so we were preparing you for the event.
Yeah, so we added another 2 hours of the same thing you were going to see all weekend.
Well, the way the schedule's kind of worked out, we was missing out last week. We're probably going to end up being behind pay-per-views now anyway.
Well, it's one of those. We can get back on track next week if people want. If the fans are clamoring, we could go again. We would just have to figure out something to talk about. We could talk Payback.
Well, I look at it this way: is in 2 weeks. What there's a pay-per-view next week, and then what? There's another pay-per-view every week until the end of time from here on in.
Well, that's the most surprising thing, that we've gone from WrestleMania to now without one. I thought there'd have been about 6.
So
yeah, I know.
I guess on that note, next time we'll bring you something wrestling related. God knows what it'll be about. God knows when. It'll probably be in a couple weeks. It'll be after Payback, so hopefully something entertaining will have happened. We'll see how right we are about the Braun Strowman, Roman Reigns shtick. We'll see if they actually have balls and let Braun win, or if they go with the lazy booking that they've been going for. And on that note, for Wasley, for Oleg, I'm Jake Starr. See you next time, folks.